Warning: the following episode contains mature subject matters, mentions of immigrant culture, and a Brazilian host with the energy of a chaotic vampire. Listener discretion is advised.
Sou foda, sou foda, na cama te esculacho, na sala ou no quarto, no beco ou no
Here with me today is a really good friend of mine, Clif Knight. Clif is a Toronto-based comedian. He is the host of Heatwave Comedy, as well as the host of Dead with Laugh Comedy. And his Instagram is Clif is so funny. Bringing him up now. Hi, Cliff. Thank you so much for joining
Hey,
me.
what's up, Laura? How you been?
Pretty good, pretty good. Happy to include you in yet another one of my shows.
Thank you so much. Appreciate being a regular guest in pretty much everything that you do. So we're parting.
Everything. So, Cliff, for the people who do not know you, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, what's up? I'm Cliff. I'm a Guyanese-born comedian. I live here in downtown Toronto. Um, be doing comedy, be doing a bunch of other stuff too. Laura and I have been friends for like what, five, six, 13,000 years. And
Almost 8 years, actually.
yeah, okay, there we go. And it's been pretty fun on this like entertainment journey, and so pretty much every project that we're doing, one of us ends up somewhere. So that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah. When did you move to Canada?
I moved in end of 2011.
Mm-hmm.
I left a pretty good job to come to Canada, to be honest. Like I was working for a security company, and I came here and I was working in a computer store. And for
Mm-hmm.
a while, I wasn't sure it was worth it. And then I got my like first paycheck, um, and I was like, and it was more money than I made in 2 months, for like a 2 week paycheck. And I was like, oh yeah, no, this, I'm about it actually.
Yeah, yeah, in dollars too.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And at what point did you decide to become a comedian? Did you always know you wanted to do that?
Ironically, I always wanted to do it, but like back home, you can't just do comedy. You need to like become an actor. You need to be a stage actor, be in the theater guild, all that kind of stuff, and then maybe they let you be funny.
Mm-hmm.
Versus here, I kind of just like randomly stumbled upon an open mic, and then got invited to go do it, and I did it, and it was terrible, and and then I've just been doing it ever since, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that the comedy scene has changed in Guyana since you've moved?
I think so, yeah. I've been seeing some good reports that things are a little bit more open. It's
Mm.
still, of course, nothing compared to like the buzz that you can get here. But like there's a few people who can kind of like, if you do it, you have the drive to organize something yourself, you can get it popping.
What about what about the terms of English versus language barrier? Does everybody speak English back home?
Yeah, it's an English speaking country. Like we're
Mm-hmm.
sandwiched in between. We're actually in the perfectly problematic spot in South America. We're in a perfectly problematic spot because we're sandwiched between Venezuela, Brazil, and Suriname. So that's
Mm.
Spanish, Portuguese, and Dutch. And we're the English speaking. Like the corner that we're in is no one can understand each other. So
Yeah.
but like inside the city, like where I'm from, pretty much
Mm-hmm.
everybody speaks English. Some people speak Spanish, and you have to like go to the outskirts to find more Portuguese people. Nobody
And
speaks
if
Dutch.
you and if you and if you went to a comedy show in Guyana, would people be speaking English, Spanish, or Dutch?
No, they would be all English. It would be Creole actually. Like it wouldn't even be an English that you could just understand. It would be like a Creolese that you had to like get it. It's kind of like patois.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. You said patois, I just thought of Chet Hanks.
Stop.
Okay. So, um, let's see. Talking about your personal background and how you got into comedy, you did not go to school for that.
No, no.
So, what did you go to school for?
I went to the comedy school, as in Humber College, but I went there for business administration,
Mm-hmm.
and with a focus on like finance and wealth management, because I realized that like I originally went to go be a musician, and then I looked at the like what it took to be a musician here, and I realized, nah, I like money, and just yeah, took my business courses, did that, and then as I was finishing up business, kind of got caught up in the comedy wave, and so felt like I could apply my skills across. I'm really thankful for the way that things turned out, because like I feel like if I didn't have a lot of my business acumen and intuition, then I probably would not be where I am in comedy today.
Yeah, it definitely had an effect in the way that you conducted yourself as a comedian. Do you see yourself as your business?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I think about, I mean, a lot of people think doing comedy is all about being funny, whereas like being funny is like not even a whole part of your
It's like a
job.
prerequisite. It's a prerequisite.
Prerequisite, like, yeah, you can be funny, but not everybody who's funny uh, gets what they want, you know,
Yeah.
or organizes what they want. And I feel like my main advantage for me is the fact that I can organize, that I can plan, and that I can pivot around things that are problems.
Mm-hmm. And talking about your career as a comedian, what would you say was your pipeline from starting your first open mics to where you are right now?
Um, the thing that really opened it up actually is I was talking about doing like being on an open mic at my work. I was working at just a retail store, and then a dude in the corner, he comes over. He's like, "Hey, you do comedy? Come do comedy at my bar." He drafted me, and I
Do you
was like,
remember who it was?
"Oh, I 100% remember who it was. He owned this bar in Kensington. It's not there anymore, but like
Uh,
he was like looking for an event, and he to him I dropped into his lap. Um,
he saw you walking by and it was like, him!
yeah. He heard me talking about doing comedy, and
Mm.
then he's like, "Yeah, come do a comedy at my bar next month, this day." And I was like, "Okay," you know what I mean? And so I organized the whole thing. I take the day off of school and work. And what I started to do is I started to research how to host a show. So I spoke to,
Mm.
yeah, I would go to shows and see who was hosting, how well they were hosting. I had gotten advice from Tim Blair, you know, legendary Toronto
Love Tim
comedian,
Blair.
one of the tall boys. He was probably
Mm-hmm.
one of the first people to like give me some pointers on how to be a host. You know, just be hospitable. You know, tell your
Mm-hmm.
jokes if you tell your jokes. Make sure you get your comics names right and figure out the timing. You know, light people and things like that. And then I was like, cool. I want to try hosting myself. And I was thrown on hosting Hawaii Bar back in the old school. Uh,
Mm.
yeah, the
Were
Rush
you
Kazi.
hosting the open mic or a show?
No, it was open mic, and
Laughter Luau?
Laughter Luau before the
Good
renovation,
times.
and so it was that was and hosted that for maybe about an hour and a half, and it was just it took so much out of me, and I realized how much energy is required to host, and like even more energy required to produce. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that really gave me a spark, and then I hosted my first show, and then from there I've just been producing, hosting. I would host for other people. I host trivia, I host birthdays, all these kinds of things.
Mm. And if you met a comedian, a young newbie comedian that was just interested in getting started with hosting, what would be the pointers that you would give this comedian?
My main pointer would be understand or try and look at like sense the flow of the audience. Like how much energy do they have right now? How well did the
Mm-hmm.
last comic do? How much experience is the next comic gonna have? Because there's times where the last comic did a fantastic job, and your hosting skill might not be as high to kind of like bring like reset the room on that. You maybe want to do a little cough,
Yeah.
maybe do one of your jokes, but don't overdo it. Is what I've noticed. And and then just like reset the room to a certain level and then bring up your next comic. Sometimes they do really well. They do like an even keel for the energy for the room. Bring up your next comic
Mm-hmm.
right away. Don't waste time with your jokes. If somebody just did really badly, like whatever it is that they were trying to do didn't really work out, then you come back, you do some of your A material to bring the energy back up, do a little bit of crowd
Mm-hmm.
work, maybe give away some prizes if you have prizes to give away. A lot of my shows I give away fans so that people have a little bit of a thing to remember us by, that sort of situation, and then you bring up your next comic. So it's like your host, your job is not really to be that funny. Your job is to make sure that all the housekeeping's in place, that the audience talks to you and not the other comics, and that you push the specials on the bar. That's really your job.
Very good points. Very
Yeah.
good points. And now that we are done talking about comedy, we need to talk about what you are passionate about. Because we both know that's not comedy, that's just a job.
I mean, I'm passionate about comedy, but listen, what we're actually going to talk about today,
Mm.
and it's not only going to be this thing; it's going to be a lot of things within the genre. We are talking about J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit. Um, I knew you'd love that. Um, and recently finished rewatching the movies. I remember watching them all. I don't really go to theaters, even though I live right above one of them. I
Yeah.
had stolen all of these movies. Please, Peter Jackson, don't sue me. I am just a poor boy from a poor family. And I watched all of these like on my laptop for the first time, you know what I mean, back in the day. And then they were I think, so much more entertaining than the original trilogy, the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, because that one's very serious. It's very
Yeah.
long. There are these long-reaching implications for the world. Tolkien's Middle Earth,
You're talking
and
about the Hobbit trilogy right now.
yes, so I'm actually
Yeah.
talking about the Hobbit being a little
Yeah.
bit more exciting, even though the I think the scope of their adventure is probably a lot smaller than the
Mm-hmm.
Fellowship of the Ring.
Mm-hmm.
The implications for an entire race of people, the dwarves, is exactly what's at stake here. Like, this dragon
Yeah.
has moved in and usurped one of their most profitable, one of their strongholds. And he just
Yeah.
showed up, and he's in there sleeping. You're not even doing
Yeah.
anything, bro. You know what I mean? And so
And
this
it
host
ruined the
of
entire line of Durin because of
yeah, yeah,
this
yeah, yeah,
greedy
because he wanted,
dragon.
he's a greedy dragon, and it's Benedict Cumbersnatch or whatever his name is. And he's doing this voice, and and Bilbo Baggins comes in to steal the Ark and Stone and whatnot, and the piece of, basically the only piece of lore that links these two trilogies together is Bilbo. He is this
Yeah.
really, really pivotal piece. And if you haven't read the books, they don't talk about this in the movies. As much as Bilbo is a pivot, so is Gollum, Smeagol,
Uh-huh.
right? Because Smeagol is also a halfling. He's one of the few halflings that has left the Shire and survived.
Yeah.
And the reason that he's lived so long has been the ring. And it's actually
Mm-hmm.
it's driven him crazy. He doesn't trust anybody, so he doesn't want to go back to the Shire. And what they don't explain, I don't think they explain this in the book either. This is a personal theory, is that
Mm-hmm.
Bilbo sees that. Bilbo gets
Mm-hmm.
the ring. It almost drives him crazy as well, but he sees that, and he's like, I don't want to be that. And
He
so he does
doesn't
a
want to
good
be
job.
Gollum.
Yeah, he does a good job of hiding the ring, using it only when it's necessary, right?
Yeah.
And then ultimately really having the strength to give it up, in
Mm-hmm.
the Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
The piece that's missing there is that when Smeagol and Deagle originally find the ring, Smeagol kills. I don't think it's his brother; it's just a relative. I think, but they were very close, and so it
Yeah.
wasn't just the ring that drove him crazy. Luckily, Bilbo didn't have that because the entire other side of the Baggins family had betrayed him. So he, in the start of The Hobbit, he's feeling so alone. He's feeling very, abandoned by the rest of his family. They only want to like come and rob him, and so he finds this chosen family in this squad of dwarves that show up to destroy his house. You know what I mean? And that that is actually
Yeah.
what saves him in the end is his actual like the dwarves like the company of Thorin Oakenshield are the original Fellowship of the Ring, but they don't know it.
They don't know. See, it's funny because I I like to I like to use the Hobbit versus the Lord of the Rings as a metaphor when it comes to um accessible adaptations to non-readers. I
Hmm.
find that
Yeah.
like I love the Lord of the Rings trilogy more than I love the Hobbit trilogy.
Mm.
Um but I appreciate the accessibility in the Hobbit trilogy more than the Lord of the Rings. Because what happened with me was that it took me, I think, 7 years to actually get through the Lord of the Rings
Oh,
because
the
I hadn't read
books.
the books.
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I could not understand the movie
Yeah,
because there was so many things that were implied that you would
and then
know about because you
they're
read the book.
missing. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff
Yeah,
missing.
it was lots of
Yeah,
assumptions, right? um and I found that like something like Harry Potter, for instance, they explain everything that you need to know in the movies. So if you've read
most
the
things.
books,
Most things.
you have extra details, but like
Yeah.
you don't get confused watching the movies.
No, no. The
You see what I
okay. So
mean?
yeah, it's the original Lord of the Rings trilogy is is set up in this sort of way in that they've left a lot of stuff of we'll explain this later, and then
Yeah,
sometimes they sort of do, but that's what Tolkien did. And so the
yeah,
changes that has been made to the Hobbit, because the Hobbit movies are like mangled compared to the book. The book
yeah,
is not the same thing.
yeah,
Now what the Amazon has decided to go back and do is they're doing a series, The Rings of Power, which is based on the timeline of before The Hobbit, sort of
yeah.
after, like in the interim of the Silmarillion, because the Silmarillion, nobody can read that shit.
Yeah,
Nobody, the Silmarillion is you. Yeah, explain it to me. You know what I mean? Like nobody.
it's really confusing to
it,
explain.
it, it
It's
doesn't
really
really make that much
confusing.
sense. But that's because it doesn't actually
But
like
there's
have
so
a
much
narrative.
lore. It's
Yeah,
That's the thing. There's so much lore within the Middle Earth universe. There's
yeah.
so much backstory, history that's referred to, and entire languages developed,
Entire cultures have risen and
entire
fallen.
maps, everything.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah, yeah.
such a rich world. I found that when it came to the Hobbit, I had something that I really loved was Smog. Like the
Yeah.
performance, the animation for
Of
that
in
dragon
the
is
dragon
is
and
insane.
all of the gold work that is done
It's
in that second movie. Yeah.
it's in, and do you understand that like we're talking about a movie that was released, I'm pretty sure 10 years ago. I'm pretty sure it was released in like 20
Um,
2013, 2014.
Smaug? No. Smaug is because oh, you're right, it is 2013. Holy shit. All right. I mean, and this is this is post what's it called? Goblet of Fire and Order of Phoenix,
Yeah, but
and this is them playing with all of the mechanics that would eventually become the Magical Beasts
yeah,
franchise. Yeah.
and like it's crazy because even for something that was made 10 years ago, still if I watch that movie and I compare it to certain like CGI movies that came out today, you
Yeah.
still have something like flawless.
Yeah.
So like from a production perspective, even though a lot of people complained from the different creative choices, such as like more use of CGI, or the orcs not being makeups versus, what I mean, like
Yeah, yeah,
lots
yeah.
of people
Versus
complained about that
versus
stuff,
why
and I
are
didn't
the
really
elves
think
even in this story? They don't even show up in this book. Shut up.
see, my only issue that I had with the trilogy was not the different looks, and it was not the use of CGI. My issue was that I don't think that should have been three movies. There should have been two movies, and they would have been fantastic movies. I felt like the Battle of the Five Armies was
Yeah. It was superfluous.
60% about a romance that wasn't.
No, I don't feel like the romance featured that much.
Uh,
No,
to
they
me,
had
it
to
felt
put a
like wasting
romance.
time in the screen. Like the battle itself was 20%, 60% was the romance, and then you had like 20% of continuation from the situation
From the
with
previous.
Smog.
Nah, man, I feel like what actually took up Battle of the Five Armies more. The romance it wasn't necessary, but I feel like the producers felt like they had to put something in there. The thing that took
They
up the most of
explain, yeah.
the thing that took up the most of the Five Armies is a lot of the imagery of Thorin going crazy, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's
That's
a good point.
you,
I
and
did
I feel
like
like
that stuff though. I did like
it
that.
was so good. I feel like they spent an appropriate amount of time doing that because he's so level-headed in the first two
Yeah,
movies. He's
that's
so
true.
level-headed. He's so reasonable. He's a little bit obstinate, but like it's because he's a dwarf, and they have to be. I feel like though, if it were not Bilbo, um, if it were another dwarf who had made the decisions that Bilbo did, Thorin would not have turned in the way that he did at the
Okay,
last moment.
okay, but can we talk about the shipping that goes on between Bilbo and Thorin?
And Thorin, um, I don't know. It felt light, but it also felt like it could have happened. Like if it was really, But I like the
I know,
character that Martin Freeman is.
I know. Lord of the Rings itself is like a very homoerotic um, series.
Some of it for sure is. I loved
Um,
him like a brother, but we were not related. Situation.
also,
Happy
what
Pride, everybody.
Happy Pride! Yay! What do you
Um,
what do you think it would have been like if Philly and Killy met Mary and Pippin?
oh, they're not. To be honest, I don't think they're similar. I don't think they're similar
Really?
at all. No, because just because they're brothers and they're very close and they have that that duality, which is a trope. If you go on tvtropes.com and you look up twins, um, Merry and Pippin are not the same because Merry and Pippin have this more like boyish quality to them, and I feel like that is indicative of the differences between hobbits and dwarves in the first place. We've gone way over 5 minutes, by the way,
Mm.
but I knew this was
We're
gonna happen.
too passionate about this.
We've thought about this too much. The similarities that they are two close brothers who goof around a lot is kind of about it. I don't think that they would actually get along that well, to be honest. Like
Yeah,
I feel like
interesting.
I feel like Philly and Killy, as with all dwarves, have this sort of more important relationship with their lineage and their
Yeah,
kin and their cultural identity, whereas the hobbits, just like the Harfoots or whatever, they like being in their own community, but it's not till death the way that the dwarves
yeah.
do it. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like they would probably throw a really, really good party together.
Oh,
That's
for
my
sure,
take on it.
probably. But it
That's
would
my
be
take.
like, yeah, it would definitely be like Merry and Pippin are the ones like partying,
Yeah,
and like Philly and Killy are running the party.
and
You know.
singing and stuff.
Well, I mean, we already
But
know. We already know. Mary is the singer. Is it Mary? Yeah,
yeah,
He sings that beautiful
before we conclude the Hobbit talk, I have to ask you: can you quote anything from the movies now that you've seen the whole three?
song.
Any quote that stood out in your memory?
Quotes that have stood out. Actually, this is a very fun one. And this is from Killy. Actually,
Uh huh.
is in Desolation of Smog when they get caught in Florindel,
Mm-hmm.
the elf city or whatever, and they take all of their weapons, and Toriel puts Killy in the cage, and he's like, "But you didn't search me. There could be anything in these pants," and she's like, "Or nothing." And he's like speechless. That I
That's a
watched it
good
like
quote.
twice. That was actually so funny.
Um, I always quote Smog all the time, and
Yeah.
I never considered why until recently. I was talking to this guy, and he was like, "What's your go-to quote from The Hobbit?" And immediately, without blinking twice, I was like, "Revenge, revenge! I will show you revenge!"
Revenge.
And then,
And you
and
fly
then he
away.
was like, yeah, and then he was like, okay, but is this a quote from The Hobbit or is this something you would say? And I was like,
Little column A, little column B.
okay, so
I
Cliff,
am death.
I am fire. So, for the people who just met you with this interview and would like to keep up with you, what would you suggest that they do?
If you got Instagram, if you got TikTok, if you got Facebook, go on there and type in the search bar. Cliffy so funny. You gonna see a few profiles that look like me. I'm the one with all the underscores. You figure that out. Um, Follow me on there. I post a lot. I post content regularly. I post all my shows if you want to come watch me live. Also, one of the main things that I like to do is I create events that will feature artists of color, queer artists. Especially this Pride Month, I've got Heatwave Comedy tomorrow, which features an all queer lineup, and then we're gonna have Dead with Laugh Comedy, which is a Caribbean showcase. It's a pre-Caravana show. So if you feel like you want to come do some soca things, yeah. So we're gonna be up in Richmond Hill at the very prestigious Joker's Comedy Club and Theater next to the hotel. Come check us out there, or you could just stalk me. Just stalk me. You know, and we'll figure it out.
All right. So, for everyone listening, don't forget to follow him at Cliff is So Funny on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. When I recently asked him what his handle was and whether I could promote his Twitter, he was like, please, people shouldn't follow me on Twitter.
Don't follow me on Twitter. No, 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 no. That's private. If you follow me on Twitter, I will assume that you're a pervert. That's just like,
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming to this interview, Cliff. We talked about your personal background and how it was like to be a comedian that came from a country with so many languages. We talked about your professional background and everything you've learned from business to comedy here in Toronto. You've given us pointers on how to host a comedy show for anyone starting out. And then we went on for 15 minutes about The Hobbit.
how about the Hobbit? Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's my favorite thing. Yeah.
Well, Cliff, this was a wonder, and I'm very thankful that you did this. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you on the next one.
For sure.
Bye.
Bye.
And this was the episode. You've made it. You survived my voice this entire time. Wow. Thank you so much for supporting me. If you'd like to stay up to date with my weekly episodes and occasional videos, please follow me on Instagram and subscribe to my YouTube channel at Laura Faritos. If you'd like to stay up to date with my work besides the show, please go ahead and sign up for my monthly newsletter. There, I summarize key takeaways from my episodes, I share links to any other content I produce, and I also include tickets to comedy shows, so that's always nice. Finally, if you'd like to take an extra step and support the making of the show, please consider making a one-time donation, buying my merch, or signing up for my Patreon for just $2 a month. You get all my content ad-free, full length, and sometimes even the behind-the-scenes process. I'm looking at you, media production students. You like the show? Do you? Do you? You like the show? Prove it. Give me your money. Pay me cash. Dollars. I want dollars. This has been a public service announcement. See you in the next episode. Ciao, ciao.
Sou foda.